So, hey guys, sorry that the video ended at its own. This was due to a technical failure. So we'll be continuing from where the video stopped. We'll be continuing. It is the part 2 of the webinar. Okay, we'll be continuing the video from where we stopped. So I think we stopped here. We talked about what is OAuth2 and how does it what actually it provides. It provides authorization. We talked about that. Then we were on what roles does OAuth2 define. Okay, so I think we ended here. So I would like all of you to join again. I'm sorry for what happened. So, okay, we'll be continuing. So we were talking about the resource owner, resource server, client, and authorization server. Resource owner, as I told, is generally you yourself. Okay, resource owner is you because you're the owner of your own resources. Then comes the resource server. Resource server is basically you can say Google that is hosting your profile and personal information. So Google and Facebook services have your account created and they have your profile and personal information. So they act as a resource server. They are a server to your resources. Okay. Then there's a client. Client is the application. It can be a JavaScript application, a mobile application, or what is it? It's kind of an application that is going to request the resource server to access whatever your details are stored there. Okay. Then comes the authorization server. Authorization server has its the duty to issue tokens to any kind of a website. Okay. Without having the token, without having the access token, as I have highlighted here, without having access tokens, no website can directly retrieve a user's data from any kind of a Google or Facebook service. Okay, there needs to be an access token there. So basically, authorization is in charge of issuing access token to the website. Okay, so we'll understand it more with the help of this diagram. So I'll tell you that this this is my application and it is a client. Okay, this is my application, my web application, my mobile application. It is a client. There is a user, which is the resource owner. There is an authorization server and there is a resource server. Okay, so my application is going to first of all going to give an authorization request to me as a user. It is going to ask me for an authorization request like I showed you here. Yeah, showed you here. It is going to ask you that do you want to allow this app to access your data? Then it is going to ask you for authorization. You can click on allow or deny. Okay, this is the authorization part that the application is going to ask you. Then you can click whatever choice you opt. You can click on if you grant the authorization that you said allow using my resources. If you allow, the request goes back to the client, and then from there the user authorization, the user has already authorized the application, so user has done his work. Now application has to do some work with the help of authorization and resource server. Now user has accepted the grant request, and then now the application, web application will go to the authorization and say that hey, the user has allowed me to that user has accepted the authorization request. Now I want you to grant me some tokens so that I can show those tokens to the resource server and fetch the user's details from the Google's or Facebook's account. Okay, so application is going to ask authorization server for some kind of tokens that are needed to be shown to the resource server to gain access to all the details of the user on his Facebook or Google account. Okay, so yeah, then as we are talking about tokens, I like to tell you that there are two kind of tokens. Two kind of tokens. Tokens are, what are they actually going to do is tokens are responsible for allowing the application to access a user's data from a Google or Facebook service. Okay, So there are two kinds of tokens, the access token and the refresh token. Okay, the access token is considered to be the most important token because it is the one who is going to allow the user data from being accessed by a third party application. Okay, third party application can only access the data if it has the access token in the request parameters. Okay, then comes the refresh token. Whenever authorization server is issuing the access token, as I told, authorization server issues the access token. Whenever authorization server issues access token to the third party application, along with that, it also issues a refresh token. So what a refresh token does is, it is going to renew. Suppose if an access token expires after a particular amount of time, the refresh token is going to renew an access token so that it can again be used. Okay, so these were the two kinds of tokens that are generally found in the request headers. Okay, the access token is very important if any kind of an application wants to gain access to a user's Facebook or Google or whatever social service account. Okay, then then I have created an example to explain you certain things, that how this token transaction actually takes place between three three basically main players. That is the user, the consumer is here the application, the web application you can say, the user, the consumer, and the service provider. Service provider like Twitter, Google, or Facebook. Okay, so the example that I am taking here Yeah, the example that I'm taking here is, in my example, that I've taken a user, Akshat is the user here, bit.ly is the consumer, and Twitter is the service provider. Okay, Twitter is a service provider who is controlling Akshat's secure resources like his Twitter stream. So what Akshat wants to do actually, Akshat would like bit.ly to be able to post the shortened links to his stream. So Akshat wants bit.ly to access his Twitter stream and post there some links that he wants to post. Okay. So how does this process actually takes place? Step one is going to say that Akshat talks to bit.ly that, okay, hey bit.ly, I would like you to able to post the links directly to my Twitter stream. So Akshat wants bit.ly to post the links to his Twitter stream. So bit.ly says that, okay, now I have to go to Twitter and ask permission for that. He can't directly access Twitter, right? There needs to be some kind of a permission format for that. So bit.ly will now go and ask Twitter for permission. Okay. bit.ly goes to Twitter and he says that I have a user, Akshat, that would like me to post to his stream. So can I have the request token? So can you allow me to do that? Can you give me a request token? So Twitter says that, okay, here's a request token and there's a secret. Okay. The secret should not be shared with anyone because it's a kind of a confidential thing. So now Twitter has given a request token to bit.ly. Now bit.ly goes back to Akshat and says that, okay, I am sending you to Twitter with an access token, with the request token that Twitter has given me. So bit.ly will direct Akshat to the Twitter for authorization. Now this is what actually I showed you here. This screen that I showed you here, this case is of Google. Like the suppose this is bit.ly and this is Twitter. So okay, the bit.ly is making this consent screen available to Akshat to either allow or deny and to authorize bit.ly to access his Twitter streams. Okay, this kind of a screen will appear, and when Akshat says that, okay, when bit.ly directed Akshat to this Twitter for authorization, then Akshat agreed. Okay, then Akshat said that, okay, I agree. So Akshat says, Twitter, I'd like to authorize this request token that bit.ly gave me. Akshat goes to Twitter and says that bit.ly has given me a request token, so I want Twitter to authorize this request token. Okay, so Twitter says that, okay, I can authorize it, but just to be sure that, are you sure you want to do this or not? Then Akshat says that, yes, I want to do this. Twitter says that, okay, you can go back to bit.ly and tell him that he has a permission to use this request token. Since Twitter has authorized the request token. So now BitLY has the permission to use this request token. Okay. So Twitter has marked the request token as good to go. Okay. Now it's good to use. Now when BitLY now has the authorized request token. Okay. So what happened till now is Akshat went to Twitter and made the request token as an to be an authorized request token. He authorized it, and the request token became an authorized request token. Now BitLY has the authorized request token now with him. And then he again goes to Twitter and says that okay, now you first allowed me, you first authorized my request token. Now can I exchange this authorized request token with an access token? Can you give me an access token to access Akshat's Twitter stream? And Twitter says that okay, I give an access token in place with the request token. So now BitLY has the access token. Now since access token is a key to access any kind of user's account in any service, so now BitLY has the access token. So obviously now BitLY can post any kind of a link that Akshat wants directly to his Twitter stream. So this was the process, like how the request token transaction took place to finally into an access token. The request token became an access token. How through all of the processes that it went. Okay, and at the end, BitLY got an access token and it was able to access Akshat's Twitter stream. Now, yeah. Now, yeah, whenever we want to enable a kind of a service that says that okay, I have my application, I want to develop my application and I want to allow my users to use the service of login in with Google. Okay, so for that I need to tell Google that I am making an application and I would like to make use of your services. Like I need to tell Google, obviously, otherwise how will Google know, how will Google authorize the things? I need to tell Google in some form, and this is called application registration, that you need to go to developers platform on Google, Facebook, or whatever social network you want to use. You need to register your application while making an application. When you register, you make the service aware that you are going to use their services in future. Okay, so when you register an application, you have to give an application name, you give your website's URL, and then you need to provide a redirect URL and you get a client ID and client secret. Now these two terms I'll be talking about that what actually they are. Okay, when we talk about client ID and client secret, when we register an application, the after registering the application, the client, the registrar is being given a client ID and a client secret. The client ID is basically to identify that particular application who is going to access the services of Google. Okay, so client ID is a unique ID to identify a particular website. So now my website has a client ID and a client secret. Now what actually a redirect URL is? A redirect URL is basically a place where the service will redirect the user after they authorize your application. Suppose I told you about that screen that said, do you want to authorize this application to use your resources? There was an agree and a deny button. So if I click on agree, then the application is then my website is going to redirect me to a new route that is going to handle the request after I authorize it. So okay, redirect URL is basically going to take me to another route to handle what kind of a permission I gave it during the authorization part. Next comes whatever I discussed, that how the token exchange process takes place. That explanation was in a like layman format. I explained you with an example. Now this is what actually you get to see in the headers while making requests. Okay, so when you click on the login button, there's you can see this response type equals to code. Okay, this response type equals to code means that you are expecting, the server is expecting to receive some kind of an authorization code. The authorization code here is the we talked about request token, right? We talked about authorized request token that was given to BitLY by Twitter. That's the same thing that the server is expecting to get a authorized request token. So this is the in parameters we indicate this in this way, and then we indicate the client ID. Suppose if you want to use the service, we need to provide a client ID so that the service is able to recognize which application is trying to access my services. Okay, so I need to provide my client ID that was given to me when I registered my application, then the redirect URL that I told you what actually it is, and then the scope. Scope is basically scope. You can understand it as, suppose I say I am a website, and when I use Google services, I want to only view the email address of the user. I don't want any other details. I only want the email address. Okay, so that is a scope, a kind of a like some kind of a limitation is being bounded. Like you want to see only some kind of a particular thing. You don't want everything. You want to view a particular information that you are stating in the scope. Suppose if I say I want to view the whole profile, then you mark scope is equal to profile. Okay, so these there are different scopes that you can handle while using this. Then the state that is being mentioned here, the state is basically, you say that state is a random string generated. It is a random string generated by the application. Okay, it's random. So what is it actually? It is going to be helpful in the future. Like it is going to be stored as a cookie, and whenever you make future requests, this state will still be there in all the requests. So the stored cookie will be matched with the randomly generated string that is present in the request. If both of them are still the same, then that means that yes, this user is authenticated with the this is a kind of cookie authentication process. Okay, so it will check with the stored cookie that okay, yes, this user was already there. This is the same cookie that was stored. So okay, it doesn't has to go with the authentication process again and again. It will not have to ask the permission from the user again and again that I want to access that, I want to access this. When the cookie matches, then that means that okay, that is the same user that I identified just now, then okay, he can access his profile. So that is where the state is used. And this is the screen that I told you that says that this application would like to connect to your account and view your data. So you can either click on allow or deny. That's your user's choice. Then suppose that the user clicks on allow, the service redirect users back to your site with an auth code. Now, what actually an auth code is? The authorized request token. The service is basically a Twitter or a Google platform that is going to give your site an authorized request token. Okay, so now in the code parameter, you have your authorized request token here, and still see you have the same state. That means the cookie that was stored here is going to be checked by the state when the another request is processed. Since both of them are same, then this makes the site aware that okay, this was the same user that already visited before, so I don't need to ask him for permissions again and again. I can directly redirect him to his profile page. Okay, so now we know that this our website has the authorized request token. Now we want the access token. Then the website is going to go to the service again, and it is going to exchange the request token with the access token. Now when the website has the access token, then obviously he has everything. Access token is a key to, if you want to access some kind of user's data from a service, you need to have an access token. So access token is very necessary. So since the website has the access token, he has the access to view any user's profile from his Twitter account or Google account or whatever. Okay, so this was how the requests are generated in the headers, how actually they are processed in the headers when the requests are being made. So now we talked about authorization till now. Now we'll come to authentication. We made authorization with the help of OAuth 2, but now we need to make authentication also, right? When a user logins, we need to authenticate that user to continue in working with our application. So for that, we use this middleware called Passport. which is going to implement authentication on web applications. Okay, so this passport has different kind of strategies. You say that it has different kind of, you can say it has different kind of functions. Okay, you can say it has different kind of functions that are going to help that authentication process. It will make it more easier. So if I talk in with if I say that I am a Node.js developer, and I can say that in context with the Node.js, there are different npm packages. Okay, so if I want to use Passport in Node.js, then there are various npm packages available, like Passport Twitter, Passport Google. So what are they actually is, suppose you want to log in with Twitter or you want to log in with Google. This Passport Twitter and Passport Google will help you do that process in the background, and will help you to get into an authenticated user. Okay, so this is what the packages are. Before writing some piece of code, you need to have these packages in your directory. I'll let you know how to do that. Then yeah, when we talk about this diagram is basically this big rectangle is my application that I have created, and I am using Google login as a service to my users in my application. Okay, so what is it going to do? That in my application I have an option called login with Google. So user clicks on that, I want to log in with Google. Then when he clicks on that, then the in my Express application I have some kind of a route handling done that is going to accept that request, that okay, you are logging with Google, so I need to send that request to Google to grant permission. So when the permission is granted, it again comes back to my application. So when now I have the permission from Google, so my redirect URL will redirect me to a different kind of a route that will help me to do the further procedures to log in with the kind of a service. Okay, so now I have been granted permission. Then suppose I say that I have been granted permission, but I am a new user to a website. Okay, so when I'm a new user, my details need to be stored in the database of an application. So when I'm being granted permission, the application is going to check whether I am a new user or I'm an existing user. If I am a new user, they'll save my details in their database for future reference. And if I'm an existing user, they'll look up in the database and find that did I exist already. They'll take out my details and then they'll redirect me to my profile page. Okay, this is the flow that basically happens. And yeah, now we will be discussing since I'm talking about Passport, we'll be discussing about these terms that I have mentioned here. uh, Now we'll be going to we'll do some kind of coding, that how actually I am achieving this kind of authentication. uh, since I told you that before using any kind of service, we need to make the service provider available. We need to make the service provider aware of what we are going to use. So now I'm going. So let's say I go to Google. I want to use Google login in my application. I'm creating an application in which I want my users to have an option to log in with Google. So for doing that, I have to register my application on Google's platform. Okay, so you type console.developers.google and you go on Google Developers Console. Just loading. Yeah, then you go to Google API console. Okay, this is the console where it's a place where you can create your projects, and this is the place where you get the client ID and client secrets for your projects. Okay, so you have to log in with your account, and then see I already have this project called test. If you want to create a new project, you go to the new project option. If I go to the new project option, see, they'll ask me for the project name. You type the project name and click on create. I since I only have since I have the test repository, so I'll select it. So I have the test already. So this is my project. I have a project created whose name is test. Okay, so when you get a project created, when you create a new project for yourself, you'll have an option that says that enable API and services. So you click on enable APIs, and then the API that we are going to use for Google logins is Google Plus. Google Plus API. So yeah, Google Plus API. So you click on this. Um, yeah, so you click on this, and you click on this, and you click on enable. Okay, when you click on enable, this API will be enabled for the project that you have created. Now you can use this API. So when you click on enable, after doing that, you need to create your client. You need to create your credentials. I'll tell you how to do that. I'm sorry, the net is pretty slow. Yeah, since yeah, because I had already created my test project. So after you create the new project and enable the Google Plus API, then you go to the credentials part. When you go to, I have already, my credentials are already being created. If because it will be a new project for you, then you go to the credentials part and click on create credentials. Okay, when you click on create credentials, it is going to ask you a certain number of things. Like it will ask you that is it a web application or a mobile application. Then you click on web application. Then it will ask you for the JavaScript origin. That means you need to provide what is the actual link to your application. Then since my application will be running on localhost, so it is I'll give the address for the localhost 3000. 3000 is the port number. Okay, I gave that, and then the redirect URLs that I talked about, you need to have a redirect UI URL that is going to redirect a user to a specific route. Okay, so this is my redirect URL that I have made here. The localhost 3000 is same. Then I have made auth Google redirect. This is my redirect URL. I'll let you know more about this. Don't worry about that. This is all you need to enter here. And then when you click on save, then a dialog box will appear, and it will show you your client ID and client secret. Mine has already been generated. That's not a problem. When you click on save, you will get these kind of details. Okay, so you'll get your client ID, you'll then get your client secret. When you have that, now we will be creating some kind of we'll be creating a simple website that will give you an opportunity to log in with Google. Okay, when you log in with Google, you'll be able to see that yes, you actually can retrieve your profile from using Google service from my application, and you will be able to see your profile details, your Google account details. Okay. Since I mentioned these terms, I'll be talking about these terms uh, while while doing some coding. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I already have some kind of a code ready for you. I'll be explaining. I wrote this code while working on some kind of project. I will be explaining since time is less, so I'll be explaining you what actually does every line in this code means. It's a simple code, not a very lengthy one. Okay, I'll be telling you what actually are we doing here. So in my last webinar, I told about the basics of Node.js. So in that I covered how to create a basic server. So okay, so I assume that since I have taken a webinar already on that, so I assume that you have some basics of creating an application with Express. Just the basics. You don't need to have any higher knowledge. Otherwise, I'll be telling you about the things. Okay. So the, I am making an Express-based application. So I when I go to the terminal, yeah. So since it's an Express-based application, so Express is a function which is going to help me to create a server. Okay, to create a new server. So in Node.js, there are npm modules that makes our work easier. So to create a new server, there's a module called Express. So to install it, you need to install it before using it. So you do npm install Express. Okay, and hit enter. Mine has already been installed. Okay, so after doing that, you have Express installed. Now you call the function Express in a variable. So that means that a new server is being created for you. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to get familiar with using Passport. Okay, so Passport is also an npm module. So I would request you to like install npm install do npm install Passport. Okay, click enter and the Passport module will be installed on your systems. Okay, now next what comes is for every website I need to have a home page. Okay, so this is my home page route. This is my home page route which says that I have created a public folder here which has a home.html file. Like in home.html, I have just simply created a button that says that login with Google. There's nothing else. It's a very simple file that says that login with Google. It only has one button. Okay, just to show you what actually happens. It says that login with Google. Then uh, this button is inside a link tag, and the link tag has a reference of there's a link given here slash auth slash Google. So what is it actually going to do? I'll tell you about that. So here I created my home route. This is my home route that is going to send the home.html file when I start my server on. So when I start my server on, like I'll show you what actually happens. See, now when I started my server, it has a simple button saying login with Google. Okay, so now I have my home page ready. Now I want, when I click the button that says login with Google, I want to do some kind of an authentication and authorization process, and I want to retrieve my profile. Okay, so the link that I mentioned here, that my button should have a link to slash auth slash Google. So what is it actually? We see that slash. Now I'm going to make a route named slash auth slash Google. So this is a route which has the name auth slash auth slash Google. Okay, it's the same route. So when I'm going to click the button has a link on. The button has this link, and this link is the link to a different route here. So when I'm going to click the button, basically what is going to happen is that I am visiting this route. Okay, so when I'm clicking this button, I'm visiting this route. So for now, you know that when I click the button, I visit this route. Okay, so now what actually is happening behind the scenes when I click the button? Now I need to create a separate JS file for requiring Passport. Now I require the same module Passport that I required here. Okay, I require this module. Then along with this, I am requiring, as I mentioned, there are various strategies available in Passport that help us to manage the login with different social networking services very easily. So I have this Passport strategy known as passport-google/oauth20. So you just need to do npm install this module, and then you will have this module in your system. Then you require this module, and dot strategy is written here to activate the strategy, like to activate the Google strategy. Okay, so now I have the passport Google uh, passport Google module in with me, and I'm acquiring the strategy of Google. Okay, so and I'm storing it in the variable. Now I have the Google strategy with me in the variable called Google strategy. Okay, now what I need to do is I need to use passport. Okay, what I need, passport is basically the variable name in which I required the module passport. Now I'm going to use passport. I will say passport.use is just going to use it is just going to use the facilities that passport module has transferred into the variable passport when I have required it into a variable. Okay, so now passport.use, then the first parameter is new Google strategy. Okay, so the Google strategy variable that I created here has the uh, when it has the strategy of that Google module, and it is stored in the Google strategy variable. So now I am passing new I'm making I'm creating a new Google strategy as the first parameter, and in that new Google strategy I need to pass in the parameters that we just now got, like the client ID and client secret. We received the client ID and client secret here. Okay, so we need to give the client ID, we need to pass the client ID, client secret, and callback URL that we mentioned in the first parameter in the Google strategy as an object. Okay, see, you can see that this is an object format, like it's in the curly phrases and it's separated by commas and key and value pairs. So it's an object format. Okay, so this is my client ID, this is my client secret that I got when I registered my application on developers.google console. Okay, then the callback URL, as I stated. Okay, the callback URL, as I have mentioned, callback URL is the place where after processing this request, where is my route going to, how is my route going to handle my request after that. Okay, so this is the callback URL, and I have this URL in my app.js. This is a different route for it. I have the route for handling the redirect URLs. Whenever I am making a request to Google, after authorizing the request, it will redirect me to some page of my website, and this is the page that this is the route of that page that I want to be redirected to. Okay, so I mentioned the redirect URL, and but if you whatever redirect URL that you mention here should be available as a route in your app.js file. Don't forget to do that. Okay, then okay, this was the first parameter of passport.use. Okay, then the second parameter is the it's a function having 4 parameters. Okay, first parameter was an object in which you created a new Google strategy. The second parameter is a function that has 4 variables. First is the access token, second is the refresh token, third is the profile, and fourth is done function. Okay, the first parameter, as we all know, access token, I told you, whenever the request will be processed, an access token and a refresh token will be part of that request. Okay, so they will be there. Whenever so when I'm making a request, I'll be having an access token, a refresh token, and also after making the request, if I have the access token, I'll be getting some data back from my Google account. So this is the variable profile that is going to store my profile details. And I am see console.log will help me to like you see out, you do see out in C++ that that prints the information that you want to print. This is the same console.log is going to print the information that I want to print, that is stored in the variable profile, that is the my profile information. Okay, the profile information that I'm going to get from Google, my profile information, I will print it here just to show you that how the information is actually being accessed. So okay, so this is this is the parameter format of passport.use. And then Yeah, then this is done. Now we go back to our route handling file. See, we did everything. We created the home page. We created we created this route. Whenever the user clicks on the button to log in with Google, this will be handled by this route. So what is this passport.authenticate written over in these functions? So passport.authenticate is what is it actually going to do? We want passport to interact with we want passport to interact with Google and let us use their services to log in so that we are authenticated, right? So for that, there's a method called passport.authenticate, and then in the like as a parameter you need to pass the service ka naam, and then you pass that service name, and then you say Google, I want to access the services of Google, and you say Google. And the second parameter to it is an object which is stating the scope. I mentioned earlier also then that the scope tells us what information, what type of information do you want to retrieve from, like all the information. Like from all the information I want to view the email. Okay, email. There can be a profile scope also, and there can be an email scopes also. There are various different scopes. For example, I'm taking the scope as email. Okay, the scope needs to be mentioned in an array, and this whole is an object, and scope is a value. A scope is a key, and the array that is containing the scope values is an value to this key. Okay, now I have this scope ready with me, passport.authenticate ready. Now I'll come to the redirect URL. Okay, the redirect URL also has the passport.authenticate method. The method is going to remain same, but the parameter is actually not going to be the same. Okay, whenever I'm going to be redirected, I first of all I need to verify that okay, if the redirect process, if all the process went well, then I'll write a code to redirect to a user's profile. Or if it went bad, then I'll make another page stating that okay, your request was a bad request, so it was not processed successfully. So try again. So I can write the code to make the statements to handle it. But this is way much after. So I just want to show you some basic stuff here, that in this google.js part, when I'm when I am doing console.log profile, what actually am I going to get from the my account when I'm going to access uh, Google services from this application that I have created. Okay, so I'll run this since the server is already on. So I'll go to the server and click on login with Google. Okay, so now it is going to show you choose an account to continue to test. Test is the name that I've given to my application. So okay, that is the name of your application. It can vary according to your name. So suppose I am going to use this account. You won't see anything here because I have not written any code to redirect to any page. What I want you to know is, I just want you to show this thing. See, earlier there's no output below server.on. Okay, server on. Now we got an output like this. It's an object. Okay, this object has various values. Like you can see, it has an ID, it has a display name, emails. See, email has my email ID. You can see that it is basically my information that I have retrieved from this application that I have created through using Google service through passport. Okay, so now you can see I have like output. See, I have made it as an output. You can see my details, like there's a picture. Yeah, there's a link to my profile picture. I don't have a profile picture though, but there is a link to your profile picture if you have it. By default it must be something, and there is email because I mentioned my scope to be email, so it is basically showing the data related to the email only. So you'll mostly see my email everywhere. So if I change the scope, then the data will also change. So I just wanted to show you that how I got the data from Google service. This is how I actually get the data. And now since I have the data in the object form, then obviously I can access this data throughout my application and make the user go to the profile page and display these details in his profile page. Since I have the details, obviously if you know like how to write code, you can code can be written to display, to take the users to their profile page and display them their profile, because we have the information with us. So okay, I just wanted to show you this information that I have displayed here. Okay, rest is all cool. Yeah, the last topic that I want to discuss is this you can say this see this commented thing, right? This is I want to tell you about passport.serialize user and passport.deserialize user, and what is it actually doing. For that, um, yeah, passport or serialized user and deserialized users are very important functions while working with passports and while working with authentication. So what actually serialized user is doing is, see, what actually serialized user is going to do is, there is a passport or serialized user is taking a parameter. A parameter is a function that contains two parameters saying user and then done. Done is a function, okay. Then we have this function definition that is saying that that done null comma user not id. You don't pay much attention to this, just understand what actually is it doing is, this null is because this the done function takes two parameters. The first parameter is representing the error, and the second parameter is representing the data that the data it has to hold. Okay, so in this case null is written because there is no error. Okay, that is why error is stated to be null, and the user not id is the data that the done function is going to return through this function. Okay, so what actually serialized user is going to do is, serialized user determines that which data of the user object should be stored in the session. Now what a session is, basically a session helps you helps to prevent basically helps to prevent users not to like, there is a session that says that okay, you need to be authenticated, you can't directly visit any route of the page without logging in. The sessions are generally for authenticating users. Okay, so what is it actually going to do? It is going to store some part of your object information, like the information that I showed you here, the information that I displayed here, this is a part of my, that I am a user, I have this kind of an information. Okay, so what I want to do is that I want to store some part of an information from my object in the session, so that I can be uniquely identified each time I try to visit any route of my website. Okay, so the user ID. So in this case, user ID is being passed as a parameter. So user ID that is being provided as a second parameter in the done function. Okay, so is saved in the session and is later used to retrieve the data of the whole object. So basically whatever I am passing at the as the second parameter in the done function will be used to store it to the session. See, it says that whatever you pass here, it is going to be saved into the session in the format that request.session.passport.user is equal to id of that session. It is not mandatory to pass the id. You can pass your username also, you can pass your user email also. Whatever you pass as a parameter here will be stored in this session. Okay, will be stored in this session and it will be used to identify you. Okay, then it comes the passport or deserialized user function. Then what is it actually going to do is, the first argument to of deserialized user corresponds to the key of the user object that was given to the done function. So your whole object, suppose you have this user id stored in your session. Now you want to retrieve the whole object, the whole user information, the all user information of yours with the help of that id. Okay, so you need to provide this id in this deserialized user function, and then the id that is being provided here is, it will go and in the database This is the command that we use in MongoDB to fetch a particular information through Mongoose models. Okay, so you just think it like that, that using this id that we stored in the session, using this id we are going to retrieve all the information that the user has, because we can't store each and everything in the session, right? We can't store id, username, name, all the things. We need to store one thing. With the help of that we can retrieve all the other things. So we are storing id, and then uh, after storing id I am going to retrieve all my other information with the help of this id. So I'm going to find it in the database with by passing the parameter that id should be equal to this what is being stored here. And then done function, see the in the user part will hold the all the object, all the user data that has been found after searching the database. So the user's information is stored in the user, and the done function is going to return the user's information, and the output of the return part of this function will be what will be the return part by the done function. The done function is going to return the user's information, that will be the return part of this whole function. So now this user object is going to be attached to request. Okay, so now our request has this user object. Now every time we want to access any kind of an information, suppose I say now I want to access my user's email, so what I just need to do is request.user.email. Then I will have the user's email. If I want to access the name, then I say request.user.name, and I have the name of that user. So it is just making our work easier to access the user's data. This was the end of serialized user and deserialized user. These two functions are very important while working with passports. Okay, now I mentioned everything, and this is going to be the end of this session. I hope, I know there was a technical fault that happened in between, so I tried to cover all the things that I missed at that time. So I hope this session was informative for you. Now I'll be ending this session. So in case of any queries, you can write in the comment section. Else I'll be ending this session. Okay.